Hello, everybody. Looks like our participant number is growing very quickly. So my name is Michelle Brown. Thank you so much for joining us. I am the Chief Growth and Innovation Officer here at MACPA, and we are very grateful that you're here with us this afternoon for a wonderful session on cybersecurity for CPAs. Very, very hot and relevant topic. So it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Tara Diskin. I'm going to read a little bit of information, and she's going to introduce herself a little more. So she's got over 8 years at Impact Technology Group, and she has an extensive experience managing cybersecurity and service operations for CPA firms and other professional services. She's currently the operations manager at Impact Technology Group, where she helps clients strengthen their defenses, ensure compliance with FTC safeguards, and protect their operations. So today she's going to share some practical guidance on staying secure in today's digital landscape. So Tara, over to you. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, of course, I'm happy to be here. I hope I can make cybersecurity as interesting as possible for everyone. I know it's a big topic. Like Michelle said, it's a very hot topic right now as well. So I hope you all enjoy. And a little bit about myself, as Michelle said, I have been with Impact for over 8 years. It'll be 9 years in June. I started here as our service coordinator, meaning I took all incoming calls, I triaged tickets. I kind of saw everything from a very ground level, and I have grown now to operations manager. So I'm in charge of the entire technical team, making sure that they are keeping all of our clients happy and protected and moving forward and growing their businesses. So again, cybersecurity for CPAs. Today, one of my main topics is the FTC safeguard rules. I'll introduce what those are, why you need them, and how it affects your business. So a little bit about Impact. We are actually a veteran-owned company. So we pride ourselves on bringing in some of the military mindset to how we do things here. We are very standardized. We have procedures for everything. And we're, of course, very appreciative of our owner who served in the Marines and the Coast Guards. We're very thankful for that. This past year, we actually ranked number 136 in the MSP 501 from Channel Futures. It's a global MSP, I don't want to say contest, but you pretty much submit your information, and we ranked 136 globally. So we're very proud about that as well. We're also world-class customer experience trained. So my entire team went through a 12-week training course on customer service as a whole. So we are trained up on making sure that we are providing the best customer service possible. Places like Comcast, where you might call for technical support, they may not have gone through this training, and you might get frustrated by calling them. And we hope that in contacting us, you would never be frustrated, but understand that we're here to help you out. What is it that we do? I wanted to bring this up so it kind of validates why we can talk about cybersecurity. So we are considered a managed services provider. What that means simply is that we do managed IT services from networking, servers, email. We do co-managed IT services. So if there is an on-site staff member, we can assist with them as well. We do manage cybersecurity. So some people only come to us for the cybersecurity piece of their IT. We provide all the applications, the software, some of the templates for what I'm going to be talking about later today. And last but not least, we do unified communications as well, just a fancy word for VoIP phone systems. So jumping right in, I'm going to be speaking majority to CPA firms, accountants, bookkeepers, etc., people that are dealing with tax filing, payroll records, client banking details. Obviously, you guys are in the industry where you're holding a lot of really important information. I mean, you're looking at EIN numbers, you're looking at tax filings, you're looking at, revenue, payroll alone, you're looking at social security numbers, tax information, all that good stuff. And then of course your client banking details if you need to process any of their payments for them. There's so much information that you guys hold that it's really a gold mine for a hacker if they wanted to steal your information. So think about all the information that flows over your desk or your computer day by day. If it were stolen, what would that look like? How crazy would that be to have to inform every single client that you work with that their information unfortunately was stolen while in the protection of your firm? So with that said, I wanted to bring a few statistics to you guys to explain why it is so important for CPAs specifically to stay protected. So the first, you can see 43% of cyber attacks target small and medium-sized businesses. So that's any business under 100 employees or less, including CPA firms. So people think, oh, I'm too small, I can't be affected. That's actually not true. Almost half of cybersecurity attacks happen to these small and medium businesses. The next one you see there, phishing attacks account for 90% of breaches in professional services firms such as CPAs, wealth management, all that good stuff. Phishing is pretty much you're casting out a hook of an email to a multitude of people. They're seeing who they can catch in their scam, reel it in, and then they've got you. So unfortunately, it does happen to 90% of the breaches are in professional services firms, just like you guys might work in. And then the last one, which I think is almost the most important to look at, is 70% of small to medium businesses that suffer a cybersecurity attack close their doors within 6 months of being attacked, which is astounding to me. I mean, it's extremely sad as well because they're not just closing their business, it's affecting them, the owner of the company, his income, but it's also affecting your employees. They have to go find new jobs. And it's really a really bad ripple effect that can be caused from a cybersecurity attack. So I wanted to bring up actually a recent attack that happened at the beginning of this year. So I'll read a little bit about this. Feel free to read along with me. So this article came out May 14th of 2024. Pantana CPA experiences cyber attack leading to data breach involving consumer social security numbers. So on May 8th, Pantana Accounting and Tax filed a notice of data breach with the Attorney General of Vermont. And of course, you can read further. It talks about their names, their social security numbers, what had happened. Through this investigation in the highlighted section I have, Pantana confirmed that an unauthorized party accessed portions of the company's network between February 23rd and February 24th, including files containing confidential consumer information. So another thing here is this article came out in May, where they actually filed their notice in May, but the company's network was breached in February. So it was almost 3 months later that they may have even realized that they had been attacked. And this is specifically to a CPA firm. I don't have it in my slides here, but I also wanted to share, we actually got a call from a 4-employee document holding company about a month ago who had been breached. And you'd imagine, oh, there was only 4 people there. One of them doesn't even use a computer. They're super small. It could never happen to them, right? And it did. So they called us. They thought that their server was just down and not working. We went in, we looked at it and determined that they had actually experienced a ransomware attack. All of their files were encrypted and could not be used. So being that they hold documents for other businesses, that includes CPA firm documents, that includes healthcare documents, that includes, any document you could think of, they probably had it. And all of that information had been ransomware, meaning that they could not access it. And it took probably about a month to get them back up and running. Just last week, the dust has settled and they're getting back to business. They had to file a cybersecurity insurance claim with their cybersecurity insurance provider. They had to notify their clients. They had to go through the whole, experience of not being able to work for a certain amount of time, going through their backups to see if their backups had also been encrypted, all this ripple effect that had happened from a 4-person company being infected. So I want to strongly suggest, if you think you're too small for a cybersecurity attack, you're not. Because the smaller you are, they're going to think the easier it is for you to be breached. So we have a saying here that it's not if, it's when. And while we don't want to think about it happening, it's more and more upcoming in our time frame, in our how we are with technology now. Hackers are getting so smart that they can figure out the littlest detail to infiltrate your network. Unfortunately, the #1 cause of a cybersecurity attack is actually the person behind the computer. So it may not be that your network isn't locked down enough, but does your people have enough training to know what to look for? So unfortunately, with everything that's happened and with all the technology that's out there, it's not if, it is when. So after going over this with you guys and explaining what can happen, I wanted to go over, like I said in my introduction, the FTC safeguard rules. So this is actually effective June 6, 2023. And excuse me, I'm just going to grab a quick sip. And I did let Michelle know we're going to do questions at the end. So if you do have questions, you can put them in the chat, but I will go over them at the end just because I want to make sure I'm going through all the information and then we'll catch up. So the Federal Trade Commission came out with the safeguard rules. This applies to financial institutions subject to the FTC's jurisdiction. So what happens is they actually implemented these rules. You might ask, okay, well, if I don't put these in place, what could happen to me? So penalty for not having these in place can result up to a $100,000 fine per penalty. And I don't know about you guys, but I certainly would not want to pay that fine. It's cheaper and better, of course, to implement these before they figured it out that you didn't have them. What happens is if you experience a breach and you have to let the FTC know that you've experienced a breach, they're going to ask you, do you have the safeguard rules in place? And if you don't, that's where they're going to add on the fine plus whatever has happened as a result of your breach. So it can become very expensive very quickly. They also, I was reading up on this as well, they also do sometimes just routine auditing. So it could be just a randomized, they want to audit your business, see if you have these in place. Or if a customer complains or submits something online to the FTC about your business, they could look at you at that point too. So it's not a matter of, I'll get to it later, I'll implement them when I can. You're going to be fined if you don't have it in place, and it could happen. It's not if, it's when, like I said. So I would highly suggest not setting these off to the side and taking care of them when you can, but really pay attention to this, which I know is why Michelle and the MACPA wanted to bring this to light even more, because it's so important for you guys to know. So on the right-hand side, you'll see the safeguard rules requires covered financial institutions to develop, implement, and maintain an information security program with administrative, technical, and physical safeguards designed to protect customer information, of course. So some of these rules actually include to designate a security officer, to conduct a risk assessment, to implement safeguard controls, to do staff training, and there's quite a bit more. So I don't know about each one of you that's on this call today, but I don't think that all of this compiles into your direct job title of what you're doing at your business. A lot of you are going to be focusing on what you would normally do, of course, tax filings, reporting, working with your clients. I don't know that you guys would have the knowledge specifically to conduct a risk assessment. But there's certainly templates out there that you could use to help answer your questions. Or if you have an IT provider, make sure they're doing this for you as well. But a lot of this is to be covered in correlation with making sure that you stay protected. So you're implementing these as each one is an extra layer of security. So to go over more about this information security program to develop, implement, and maintain, I want to go over exactly what some of those mean, because again, you guys don't maybe know, and I want to bring to light what each one of these is so you can start doing this on your own. Even if you don't have a provider, you can start with these steps. So the first, developing your information security program. This is a little bit more of the admin, the beforehand. You're defining your objectives and your scope. What is this going to include? Does this include my entire business? Does it include all of my computers, my servers, my networking equipment, all of the equipment that I use to run my business? What is the scope of what this actually covers or should cover? The next is to conduct a risk assessment. What this does is it actually goes through a list of questions, and it just says, is your firewall that you have a business grade firewall? Does it have things set up that prevent people from hacking it? It'll go through a lot of these questions, and it'll help you figure out where you might be most vulnerable. So if you answer yes, my firewall is business grade, but no, it doesn't have rules in place to prevent people from hacking me, those are areas that you know that you can automatically improve upon. So that's the part of the risk assessment. You're going to go through all of them vary. You could go online and there might be a 20 question one, there might be a 200 question one. You can actually use what's called the CIS. They have a risk assessment framework. There's a few other ones out there, but you could always, like I said, Google is our best friend too. You can Google it and figure out if there's a template you could use. The next thing is to establish security policies and procedures. So that includes, there's a lot of information here, but the acceptable use policy. So that's pretty much saying to your employees, I accept that I'm using this computer only for work purposes. And then if I use it outside of that jurisdiction, I could be held liable if something were to happen. So it's, again, putting things in place that prevent the business from getting infected. It stays protected, and it also keeps your employees knowledgeable on what they are doing. So data protection, incident response. So a lot of what you would need to follow in case something were to happen. The last one, of course, is assigning roles and responsibilities. So as you saw on the last slide, one of the number one things was to assign a security officer. What that means, it's not a specific job title or the only thing that this person will do, but it's pretty much who becomes in charge if a breach were to happen. Who needs to be informed? Who's going to be the one reporting it? Who's the one auditing to make sure that everything that's happening in this information security program is actually happening as it should? If there's one person that's responsible, it's easier than if there are many people responsible and you don't know who to go to or who's actually, person A might think person B is doing something and vice versa. So it's setting that one security officer really sets the tone for what needs to happen. And of course, the roles and responsibilities. So responsibility flows from all the way to the security officer to each employee, making sure that they understand that you are all responsible for maintaining security in your business. So again, the development of this is the beforehand of making sure, all your I's are dotted, all your T's are crossed, everything is laid out that way there's no gray areas. It's black and white, what should be secure, who should be doing what, and going from there. So next, once you have that in place, you are then going to implement your program. So you're going to deploy your security tools, which might be specific cybersecurity software, not just antivirus, but things like your managed detection and response. You're going to do your firewall, your encryption on your computers, everything that you talked about in your plan, actually making it happen and deploying that information. The next is conduct employee training. So like I said, the person behind the desk is normally the main cause of breaches that happen, unfortunately. So the more you train your employees and your team, the less likely it could be that you'd be breached because they're knowledgeable. A lot of training programs, they show examples of emails, what red flags to look for. If you don't recognize the sender and they're asking you to send them a gift card, probably not legitimate. So it helps them learn what to look for. You can also do phishing simulations. So you can actually send fake phishing emails and see who would fall vulnerable to it. That way, you know that they need a lot more training. So the employee training, I think, is everything is important, but that one specifically is extremely important to do. And then, of course, the last is to establish your incident response procedures. So in the event that something happens, run through who's doing what are the steps, what do we need to do, what needs to happen, who do we call, who do we contact, all those good things. That way your entire team knows what to do in the event of a breach. And once you have all of that in place, you're then going to maintain your program. So just like your car, you want to make sure maintenance is done, the oil's changed. If you need a new tire, you're getting new tires, things like that. You want to do that the same way with this program. So you're going to be maintaining it, making sure that if there's changes that need to happen, that you can do those. When you do your first initial risk assessment, normally it's done before you really implement a lot of cybersecurity either training or the applications I talked about. So what you can do is you're actually going to conduct regular risk assessments to hopefully improve upon whatever you need to improve upon and make it so that you're even more protected. Your training that you do with your employees, it's not just a one and done thing. You're going to continually do that. Our training platform that we actually provide for our clients sends out like a 3 to 4 minute video every single week with a small quiz that they do. So they're constantly being trained on what to look out for. And then of course there's normally an annual full test, if you will, that goes through all of the information that they should know about, and they pretty much have to pass the test before they can proceed. I've seen actually some companies use this as a way to hire people as well. So they can give them a brief cybersecurity test just to see if they're actually their mind is focused towards staying protected. It might one up if you have two applicants and you don't know which one to go with. That could be a last resort. Who is more security minded? Who is going to be less likely to potentially cause a breach at my company? So those are ways that you can use that too. Obviously, you're always going to be updating your policies and procedures. You want to make sure that if something changes or you add something new or you're doing something different, you want to make sure you're always updating this policies and procedures, just like you would do with your handbook, your employee handbook. If you're updating that, there probably should be a section in the handbook as well for cybersecurity protections. So I would advise to update that as much as possible. And obviously, if unfortunately you were to be breached, what happened during that incident response plan, if something didn't quite work or wasn't as efficient or things like that, you might need to improve your incident response plan after you finalize whatever breach occurred. You close it out, then you might need to say, okay, did this plan work? Do we need to do something else instead? So again, maintaining everything that you're putting into your program at all times. So the second piece of it, I wanted to review because not a lot of people understand necessarily the differences between administrative, technical, and physical safeguards. So I put in a few examples here. The easiest way that I can explain it is think of administrative safeguards as like your employee handbook, your policies and procedures. Your physical safeguards are more, what physically can I change? So that's my physical computer. Can everyone have access to the office where everything majorly is stored there? Is there access control on doors if I need to get into a certain place? And then technical safeguards are things that happen that you may not be able to physically see, but that could be happening on your computer or things of that nature. So again, some people don't understand the differences between each, but they're all just as important as each other. They're just different forms of what that would look like. So if you go back to, let me go back real quick. This one. So again, this upper right paragraph, that's what we just went through. So developing, implementing, maintaining the information security program with the administrative, technical, and physical safeguards. So let me fast forward again. So the next question you're probably thinking is, okay, you've given me all this information, but what should I actually do with it? What can I actually do with it? So I wanted to go over for each individual what you can do yourself to actually stay protected and keep your business protected. And you don't have to write all these down. At the end of this, I also have a QR code where you can actually download these. So don't feel like you have to jot them down or anything like that. You can actually get it for free. So the first one, and we all know about, is using strong passwords. So creating strong, unique passwords for each account. This is also new passwords for each separate account. If you use the same password for your Facebook profile that you use for your bank and your Facebook gets hacked, they have keys to the entire kingdom of your bank account as well. So that's why we say to keep a password unique for each of your accounts. It is recommended that it's at least 12 to 14 characters long with letters, uppercase and lowercase, numbers, symbols, etc. Using a reliable password manager, we at Impact, we actually help implement LastPass, if you're familiar with that. Even like the Google Password Manager, things like that are good to store passwords with because you have one password that you keep that's separate from any other password. You access it, which is normally an encrypted space. I know LastPass is encrypted. And that way you can access your passwords there. So you don't have to remember every single unique password that you have. The second one, which I'm sure, and I hope most of you already have implemented and are using, but enabling multi-factor authentication. It was also at one point called two-factor authentication. Pretty much what this is it's saying, if I'm logging into my email, what's unique about each of us? We are our own selves, but we also carry, a cell phone. You don't really share cell phones with anybody else. No one can access your cell phone but you physically. So what happens is if I'm logging into my email, it's going to ask me to enter a code that only I can access on my personal device. That's just verifying that it's actually me logging in. So I would highly encourage you to use this for your email account, your banking application, any line of business applications that you have, anything that offers multi-factor authentication or MFA, I would highly recommend using. Third one you see is to keep software updated. So you might say, well, what does that really matter when it comes to cybersecurity? Software updates often include security patches, and all that means is just a small update that might be fixing something in the background, how the application works, what it ties to. So keeping your software updated at all times, make sure that you're always keeping those security patches 100% relevant as well. So it's keeping software updated. Your computers would also do this as well. And hopefully if you have an IT person or a company that manages it, they're actually doing this automatically for you. You wouldn't have to do it and remember it. They're going to automatically take care of it. The fourth, be cautious with emails. So I talked about this in the training program that we offer here, but again, train on how to recognize phishing emails and avoid clicking on suspicious links or attachments. You want to verify that the sender is who they actually say they are. Are you expecting something from them? If they're asking for a gift card, I think 99% of the time it's not legitimate. If there is a prince from another country asking you to send him money, it's probably not legitimate. We've all probably seen or heard, unfortunately, someone falling prone to that. The number one thing I can say about this is if you are not sure or you think something looks suspicious, go ahead and take that gut feeling that it's probably not legitimate. The best thing you can do is if you receive an email from someone is put the email to the side, look up the information, whether it's Google, Firefox, whatever you're using, call their direct number that's listed on Google, and actually personally verify with the person if they want that information. Because you can click something in an email, but the actual person themselves can't really change. So that's my number one thing. If you're not sure, or if you get like a login request or a change password request, always go to the direct application, the software, the website, and do it from there versus pulling it from the email. The last thing on this page, and I have a second page of things, but the last one on this page is to secure your devices. So again, if you go back to your cell phones, you all most likely should hopefully have a password on that. That's something that you know, that way no one can just randomly access your cell phone. I don't know about you, but my cell phone, even my banking app, I can use the face recognition to log in. So that's another way, that you can put something like that to secure your devices, your applications, things like that. Encourage your employees, like it says, to lock their devices. So if you're leaving your laptops open and you're walking away from them, that means anybody can sit down and look at whatever is on your laptop at that time. They could download things to a USB drive. Who knows what it could be, but if you're leaving it wide open, that's available for anybody to access. So remember to put passwords on any of your devices that you can. Next page, so backing up data regularly. So this is important for if you were to experience a breach, you want to make sure you have a backup of your data. That way, if there's data loss that occurs or a ransomware attack, that you can have a separate copy of your data to pull from. And if you have that in place, it also is much faster to recover from a breach because you can start using that clean data that has not been infected. So you want to do regular backups. This is also something that we provide to our clients. We actually do cloud backups so that it's available from anywhere. It's also encrypted, so it cannot be breached in that sense. The next one, which I've harped on a lot, is to conduct regular training. So even if your company does not have a cybersecurity training platform or program, at least do some of your own cybersecurity training. So maybe look up on Google or look up a video on YouTube, just things to help you stay vigilant, because it's not if, it's when. The next is use detection and response software. So a lot of people think that antivirus software is good enough to use on business computers. It is okay to use. I'm not saying to not use it. But it's almost like, I don't know if you've seen the commercial, but it'll be the dental assistant and they look in your mouth and they say, "Yep, you have a cavity," and then they don't do anything about it. It's kind of defeats the purpose of going to the dentist. So it's the same with software in your computer. You don't want something that just raises its hand and says, "Oh, something looks suspicious." You want something that can actually segregate your computer from the network so it can't infect anything else. You want something that can stop the maybe malicious software from downloading before it actually downloads. You want to make sure that it's actually containing whatever has happened or preventing it entirely before it reaches anywhere else, versus just saying, "You have something malicious," and that's all they do. So I'd highly suggest using something like that. Limiting access to sensitive information. So there is a principle called the least privilege principle. If you have files in your computer that you share with other people in your office, or you have a centralized file management, someone in management who has access to P&Ls or financial information, that doesn't mean that everyone in the organization should have access to that data. It should only be the people that maybe work with that specific client or in that specific role should have access to that data. So whoever needs to and anyone that doesn't need it should not have access to it. It reduces the risk of unauthorized access to sensitive data. So if you have, say, a receptionist that doesn't need access to a P&L or tax software or banking information, and she unfortunately gets an email because she might get more email than anybody else and clicks on something and she has access to that, they have everything. And the last thing, which is very important as well, report suspicious activity. So if you notice anything that is out of the normal or you're not sure about something, definitely send it over to your security officer. If you do have an IT personnel or IT provider, you can always send them an email you got and say, "Hey, this looks suspicious. Could you tell me any more about this?" If it looks suspicious, don't touch it. Tell someone about it. Kind of like that saying, if you see something, say something. If you don't, it could be something, and then everything could get infected and go right down the line, and there goes your business. So if you do see something, please say something. Again, I do have this in a handy dandy checklist for all of you that I wanted to provide. That way you guys could download this. But the next thing I wanted to go over was what your business should actually have in place. So this picture always makes me chuckle. This picture makes me chuckle because obviously, who is crazy enough to run in the snow in just a simple pair of shorts? But unfortunately, this is what most businesses look like in a cybersecurity mindset. So like I said, a lot of companies just have antivirus or AV software and a firewall. For those of you that don't know what a firewall is, it's an extra piece of equipment in your network that pretty much only prevents what needs to go through it to the network. So it's almost like a filter for your network. So they think that this firewall, a basic firewall, even a Comcast modem can technically be a firewall. They think that that AV and firewall is all that they need. But unfortunately, it is like running out in the snow with just a pair of shorts on. Versus the second person you can see, they have their hat, their glove, their full jacket, they have a sweater underneath, they're wearing, good shoes, they're staying protected. So you may not understand everything on this list, but I encourage you to at least write it down and make sure that your business has implemented this or bring it to your IT provider's attention just to make sure that these things are actually protecting you. So the first is your cybersecurity risk assessment. If you're not getting a cybersecurity risk assessment done, ask them to do one, ask your IT personnel to do one yourself. Definitely start doing them. Like I said, they show your vulnerabilities and you don't know what to fix if you don't know what to fix. So an incident response plan. So again, if something were to happen, what should you do? These are the detection response agents that I talked about. So there's an endpoint and managed. They are a little bit different, but they're very similar in the sense of one does, try to stop things from happening. and the next one will actually remove something that may have already occurred. Cybersecurity training for the team. So again, a platform that helps your team become more trained in cybersecurity, multi-factor authentication, spam filtering on email, which is not something I touch, but that's again another layer of protection from keeping those princes in other countries from being able to send you gift card requests or things of that nature. Puts a filter in your email, that way some stuff like that won't even get to you. It saves you time from having to clear the junk out of your email inbox, and also prevents you from maybe clicking on something that's malicious. Network restrictions, there's a lot in just those two words, but it's things like, if you're a United States-based company and someone from China or New Zealand or Australia is trying to access your network, they probably shouldn't be if you're based in the United States. So things like that could even, the added layers of protection on your network specifically. Other things for the network could be putting a password on your Wi-Fi system. Obviously, even Comcast Wi-Fi has some sort of password, but even segregating your main network from a guest network so that they can't talk to each other. And if someone on the guest network does something, it won't infect the regular entirety of your network as well. Ransomware protected backups. So the backup systems, like I talked about before, the ones that we provide our clients are protected from ransomware. So they're actually separate. They take the copy, but they're not actually working in tandem with each other, where they're connected enough that a ransomware attack could affect them as well. So even if you have a backup system, a lot of people have an external hard drive that they plug in and copy and move things over. But if they leave it plugged in and something happens, that plugged in hard drive with a copy of your data could also be infected. So it's very important to make sure that whatever backup system you do use is ransomware protected. And then same with email backups. So in case anything were to happen where, your email was hacked and they deleted all of your email, all of its history, all your sent items, everything like that, you would have a backup of that data as well to get back from, that incident. And I did put and more. There are so many things. I do not have enough time to run through everything, but there are so many things that you could do to keep your business protected. And I'd love to talk to anybody about, anything that they do have. If they have something in place that's not on this list or they aren't sure about it, you certainly can talk to me. Our next section is actually the Q&As, and I did see a few chats pop through. But before we get to the questions, this is the QR code that I had mentioned earlier. So if you do want to download the 10 tips that I provided earlier, just go to this website, just fill in a quick form and click download, and it'll pull in right to your computer. If you have questions that come up after this as well, you can certainly visit our website, or you can call this number, ask for me, or anybody else in my team can certainly help you as well. But I don't want you to feel like this is the only time you can access me. I'm not the most knowledgeable when it comes to it, but I certainly have enough knowledge to help you get to the right answers. So from there, Michelle, if you want to provide any questions that we have.
Thank you so much, Tara. This is so many great insights and things to consider. So we did have a couple questions that came in. The first one, I believe, came in when you were going over the FTC guidelines, and the comment that CPA firms were exempt from these rules.
So you said which CPA firms are exempt?
Yeah, the comment just says, I thought that CPA firms were exempt from these rules. And I believe that question or comment came in at about the time of when you had the FTC guidelines up there.
Okay. So to my understanding, this covers any financial services firms, and I can go back to the slide. Second. So to my understanding, they are not. Now it does depend. I would check with your, the owner, or making sure that if you fall under the FTC's jurisdictions. I did put a QR code of this as well that goes over who might be exempt or who is actually covered by this. But this left-hand side, according to the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, I believe is how you say it, an entity is a financial institution if it engaged in any activity that is in financial nature or is incidental to such financial activities as described in XYZ. So to my understanding and how I understand it to be is that it applies to financial institutions, and if you're doing anything financial in nature, you would be subject to that. I'd be happy to do more research for you, but to my understanding, that's pretty cut and dry, and I believe that's what it is. And having these in place, even if you're not subject to FTC, still going to be amazing for your business to keep these in place, because regardless, you could have a cybersecurity incident come up as well.
Great. All right, our next question is from Mike. He said, can you speak to how common it is becoming for CPA firms to have an independent cybersecurity audit assessment performed by an IT provider? It's a separate company from the IT firm that provides basic managed services and security services. So I guess the question is around the independent cybersecurity and how common that.
Yeah, so I can only speak for Impact. I have seen other companies do this as well. Some IT companies are not as knowledgeable in the cybersecurity realm. If they don't offer cybersecurity solutions, that is when I would bring in a third party or another IT provider, a cybersecurity provider, to do that assessment for you. Someone like Impact, where we provide all that information as well, we can handle something like that. It's also kind of like when you go to the doctor and they give you a diagnosis. If you want a second opinion, you're certainly welcome to do that as well. But I would suggest, if your main IT provider, or if you have a single IT personnel, then if the IT provider doesn't offer the cybersecurity, that's when I'd have that secondary person come in.
Thank you. And Impact Technology Group, you're based in Maryland.
Correct. Yep. So we're actually located on the Eastern Shore. So we're not too far away from every little bit of everything, but we're based in Maryland. We service the entirety of Delaware, Maryland, and then the Eastern Shore of Virginia.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Let's see. Here's a long one. It seems that very few states require you to provide credit monitoring for those affected after a breach, yet credit monitoring is always part of the good faith remedial action to be taken. Since credit monitoring costs could be expensive to cover even a small small population for a year or two, cyber liability policies should be reviewed carefully to be sure this cost will be covered. This might be more of a comment, but some cyber policies might cover credit monitoring when required by state law, which might fall short. I think this question even came up this morning in our conversation or general session, opening session with Aon. Robert Everett was talking a little bit about that insurance broker and carrier and the liability of all that. So that seemed Mike more of a comment there, but if there's anything you had to say on that matter, please feel free.
Yeah, I think that if I understand what they're saying properly, it's like are you talking about like credit as in processing like credit scores and all that kind of information, or credit cards?
I think if there's a breach in data, like one of the things that for remediation is that you're required to provide credit monitoring for all the individuals affected by that. So yeah, but I think his comments more about some states require that.
Yes. And I will make a comment about the insurance piece of it as well. Umbrella policies for insurance for your business do not normally cover cybersecurity at all. It normally has to be, if you have an insurance company that's providing it under your umbrella policy, I would either look into them to see if they're a reputable insurance company, or if I don't want to say this meanly, but if they're up with the times. Cybersecurity policies are entirely separate nowadays because it does cover so many things, and your umbrella policy will not cover a disaster if it happens. But it is something good to check in your insurance policy, your cybersecurity insurance policy, to see if that is required and if they will cover that.
Excellent. All right, Eric has a question. How often should we have an assessment?
As often as you'd like. I would say at least a minimum should be one time a year. If you are under any kind of HIPAA jurisdiction as well, they actually require it at least once a year. But I'd say at least once a year, but you can do it, like I said, every day if you wanted to, just to see if anything's improving.
Great. All right, another question. If we are entirely cloud-based, what are your recommendations? We have no network. All data is in O365, Outlook email, and QuickBooks Online, and other cloud-based apps, i.e. task management budgeting. So what would you recommend being a cloud-based organization?
So to my understanding, and I know you guys are able to unmute yourselves and maybe give me some more information, but when you say you're entirely cloud-based, where do you work from? Do you work from your home? Do you work out of an office? If you could just maybe give me a little more information. If everything is cloud-based and you're working from an individual laptop and you're working from your home, for example, there are still some business grade tools that you can use, or even business grade networking equipment that you can put at your home that helps you put these in place. Your cloud applications, your cloud providers, obviously Microsoft is going to be, top runner for cybersecurity protections. Even if you're using that, make sure your multi-factor authentication is turned on. Microsoft, I believe, if it was not last month, it's coming up soon, is actually requiring it and mandating it, and will push it to your account automatically. So be sure to look for that if it hasn't already happened. Yeah, if you're not in an office setting and you don't have the network piece of it specifically, that does remediate some of it. But if you do have any other cloud-based applications that aren't Microsoft, I would just double check with the provider of whatever application and make sure to see what their policy is on cybersecurity. If their data that they're holding is encrypted for you, if they've ever experienced a breach, what their plan might be, things like that that you can still check up on. And you still do deal with email. So your email itself, of course, should have multi-factor authentication. You still want to do some of that training to make sure that you are not clicking on emails that you shouldn't. Microsoft does offer what's called a quarantine. So it is something like that spam filter I talked about earlier. It may not be automatically in place though. So you might have to check on the settings for that. So things like that you can still do even if you're not in a on-site network file server, all that kind of good stuff environment.
Great. I think that answered Karen's question. She added that they work from home on individual laptops. So I think you did.
The other thing is also VPNs. If you're accessing anything that would require a VPN, that'd be another way to make sure you're secure. If you take it to like a hotel, try to use a VPN instead of their maybe Wi-Fi, something like that, just to keep you more secure.
Okay. I actually had a question because I don't think I see any more in the chat. You talked a little bit about the safeguards and the three different categories, the administrative, the physical, and the technical. Just in your experience, which one do you think is most forgotten by organizations, by companies in regards to this?
That's actually a really tough question to answer because I feel like if a company does not have a cybersecurity mindset, they will forget about all three. I think it's easy to think about, oh, people in my office shouldn't be accessing my office that has a file cabinet that I lock with the payroll information in it. That kind of stuff where it's a physical safeguard, people think about that anyways. But the administrative part where they actually do the developing of the plans, I think that's forgotten about a lot. A lot of people don't think about what they should do until it happens. So that can be extremely forgotten. The technical piece, I can't say it's forgotten, but I think it's not taken as seriously as it could be. Because again, I think that a lot of people don't think it'll ever happen to them. So I think they don't worry about the technical piece as much because they don't think they need it. Whereas it's actually very, very necessary to have those as well. So that'd be my answer to that, even though it was a tough question to answer.
Yep, a loaded question. All right. I think we have a couple minutes left. Just one question, hopefully real quick. You mentioned some of the detection and response software.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have examples of some that you would maybe recommend for folks that maybe aren't using something like that?
I could, however, the one that we use is proprietary to us. It's a little more confidential. So each provider might offer their own similar to like if you go to Home Depot, there's 3 contractors, they go to Home Depot, they pick up a DeWalt screw gun, a Craftsman, wrench, they're gonna build their tool set. So that's the same thing that we do is we pick the best ones out there and we build our own tool set. So that's why it's a little bit more confidential to how we do things. If you're looking at it from a personal standpoint though, I don't know of any specific personal or like individual grade detection response. There are things like McAfee, Norton, things like that as far as antivirus. But if you're using your personal computer for a business, like your business work, I would highly suggest against doing that. Either have it fully business and just don't access anything from your personal computer like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So many tips and tools and ideas for us to all consider here. Appreciate it. Tara's information is here. If you'd like to get in touch with her or anybody at Impact Technology Group, the slides are linked above. So in the chat. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Tara. and the Impact Technology Group team. Thank you so much, Tara. Really appreciate you being here.
Bye, everyone.